everyone, it's me, Zombie, and today I am going to be painting my flamethrower from the first Alien movie. Last time you saw how I built it. If you didn't get a chance to catch that video and you want to know how I made this thing, here it is right there. You can just click it, or you can watch this thing all completed, go back and watch it later, whatever you want to do. I already have my painting sweater on, my Diamond Dog sweater has been sacrificed to the cosplay gods, but that's okay. I love painting. It's gonna be a ton of fun. Not to mention this weapon is totally rusted out and looks old and nasty, which is like my favorite kind of thing to paint ever. If you wanna see how I finished my flamethrower, then keep on watching. I went ahead and put a base coat of matte white on my flamethrower. I just sprayed on a couple layers on each side out in my garage. Here's what the flamethrower looks like with a couple layers of matte white spray paint. You can see the body is completely white, and we're gonna be layering different colors on top of it. You can see that I intentionally missed some spots in some places because I know I'm gonna have to go back over those in black. And I'll be doing that with my airbrush. So I'm gonna get started here and start painting all of my silver pieces with a black base. Since I already have my black in my airbrush, I'm also gonna start going over and making some faux shadows around some of these edges right here. It'll just help the details pop a little bit more. All right, now that we have most of our black on here, I'm just going over with a brush and adding just a little bit more paint before I go over with my silver. I'm using the same mixture of Flow Improver and my black Vallejo paint, and I'm even using like drips like over here, like I dropped some paint out of my airbrush. I'm just using that to touch up some of the edges where it's needed. Now I'm taking a little detail brush and going over some of these edges that just need some extra attention. And I know that the body of this flamethrower looks really dark right now, but we're about to lighten it up here in just a minute after we put in all these little details. After all of my black airbrush stuff dried, now I am going over with a chip brush and some white acrylic paint. Just kind of using my brush, dabbing it in the paint, mixing it about 60-40, 60% water, 40% Vallejo paint. And then I'm wiping off some of the excess here and just kind of dabbing it over the black right here. And for this tank, I'm just stippling it right there and using a paper towel to get some of that excess off. And it makes this really cool layered effect. It looks like there's like lots of dirt and grime happening under there. And it's also just lightening up my whole piece as well. So I'm gonna keep doing the same thing right around here. And at first it looks a bit heavy-handed, but after you go over it with your paper towel and some water and keep doing that over and over again with the layers, really starts to lighten up a bit more. I'm really just going in a dabbing motion with this paper towel so it doesn't smear too much. I'm really focusing on areas here that need some highlights. So again, going over my mixture, and a lot of the times I'll just pick up paint that's already here on my paper. You can really see where it's picking up, especially on this end tube right here. And just keep doing layers and layers until I like how it looks.
Hey, I heard you were trying to work on cosplay. This is my table now. I take your airbrush tube. Heeeeheekdhjfkjdh.
Why are you doing this? You know I'm about to work on cosplay.
Insolent human. Not anymore, you're not. Now I eat D2.
No!
I am leaving now, but no, you are never safe, and I will return.
So now that I put my first white wash on top of all that black airbrush paint, now I'm gonna start putting some silver layers on here. I got some of my favorite metallic spray paint and sprayed it into this thick mixing cup right here. If you're gonna be spraying spray paint into a cup to use for painting, make sure that it's a thick one like this, otherwise it'll eat through the cup and get everywhere and it'll be a very bad day. But now that we have our spray paint here in the bottom of our mixing cup, I'm just going in with a paintbrush and getting a generous amount on there, and I'm going over my pieces that need to be silver. And it's going on really nicely onto the MDF. And I'm gonna do that for all the parts that I want to be silver. And then once that's dry, I'll probably do one more coat on this, and I'm gonna paint up the rest of the things that need to be silver on here. After applying all of my base color for my silver pieces, now I'm gonna do my base color for my red tank right here. I'm just gonna add some water to my red paint. And I'm just gonna go ahead and paint the tank red. And I've added way too much water to this pigment, I can already tell. So I'm gonna go in just with some straight red pigment, no water or anything, and brush over the top of it. It's a little bit better. It'll still take me probably a few coats to get where I want. That's okay. And once my first layer is dry, I'm gonna go in with a second coat of that red paint. This time I mix it in with a little bit more black to make it more of a maroon color. I know that my tank is still really wet, I just got done painting it, but I'm really impatient, so I'm gonna start weathering this top half of the flamethrower up here, avoiding that part, gonna let that part dry. So here are my 4 favorite colors for making rust and dirt on a prop or costume, and that is my chocolate brown, my burnt sienna, and sunset orange. I also have my black here that I'll mix in here and there. So I mixed together some black and some burnt sienna. Be using this brush again for stippling and just putting that nice chocolate brown color in just where I think it would get mucky and dirty. Also looking at my reference photos to kind of see where that brown is. And this is going on really wet, but I'm gonna put down a few little grubby parts, and then I'll be using my paper towel to stipple most of this away so you get a really cool dirty looking effect. And I'll even wet this paper towel with a little bit of water, and that really helps it. And then kind of stipple it. You can even do it with the brush as well if you want to wash off your brush to where there's almost no pigment on it. You can go back over it with that same brush with a lot of water and spread that color all around. I love props and costumes that are just covered in dirt and rust and nasty stuff. It's just a lot of fun to do. And I'll even go in just with some straight black acrylic paint and get some of that pigment off of there. And go in some of those edges just where grease and grime would just really get stuck. It also helps create some cool little shadows. And this part's really fun because you get to choose, you know, how clean or how dirty something is. Like maybe yours isn't like mine, maybe yours is brand new and you know there wouldn't be a lot of dirt on there. And this definitely looks heavy-handed at first. Like my silver parts, I like to kind of cover the whole thing. So now that this part right here is starting to dry a little bit, you can just tell kind of by the texture on the handle right here. I'm gonna go over with my paper towel that I've been using and just kind of dab some of that away. And you can see how much grimier that looks now than it did before. It definitely looks more weathered and like it's been used before. So I'll just keep adding layers and layers until I am happy with how everything looks. Now that we are almost all done with this thing, one of the final touches I like to do is go over with a chip brush and some of that spray paint that we have left in the bottom of our cup here. And I'm just gonna brush some really light metal over some of the edges of this. So for example, these grips right here, just gonna go over that really lightly. Because I know these guys are supposed to be made of metal and we've grimed them up so much you almost can't tell anymore. But that extra little silver pop looks really cool on the edges, and I even kind of go back and forth in different directions around the middle in some parts to really bring that shine back out. I'm gonna do it on some places, for example, right here where it's supposed to be metal. I'll brush some right over that. And on the end of this little stock tube right here, for my reference picture, there's some pretty heavy-handed silver scraping that happens there. I'm just catching the edge about midway up the brush and then carrying it back. Honestly, it's hard to kind of figure out when enough is enough and kind of when it's done, but I think I'm happy with it now as I'm still painting it, but that's it. I'm gonna stop. Can't tell if I got paint on the lens or paint on the screen. Okay, paint on the screen. That's better. It's definitely grungy and dirty, just like all of my reference pictures, and I made sure to add lots of rust and grunge. So there she is. Here is my flamethrower. Not gonna lie, the paint is still a little wet, but I'm impatient and I wanna hold it and play with it. I hope you all enjoyed watching me paint this. Hopefully you learned something so you can go out there and make something cool of your own. If you do end up painting something or you're making something right now, I'd love to see it. Please show me, it really makes my day. If you liked the video, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one, and I'll see you next time. Bye everybody!